Okay, next picture. What do we have here, Laura?
We have a picture here of the Port Oneida Community Club that was formed after the school was not used anymore. And my husband was president of the Glen Arbor School at the time. And this club or house, schoolhouse, was supposed to go back either to the Kelderhouse family or be used as a club that was no drinking, no smoking or anything like that, and for a good purpose. And then it was disbanded several years ago because they felt that the Glenley School owned it. But we had kept this up for 49 years until this happened, and we all felt pretty bad about this.
Okay, we're now focused in on some of the people here, close up of that same last picture. Who do we have here, Laura?
This is Ed Chester that lives up on Wheeler Road.
Okay.
And this is Norval Donner, who was Frank Decco's stepson. And he married a Carrie Fritz. This is Otto Hunke from Leland. John Deckel. Ann Hansen.
Let's see, who is Ann Hansen?
Well, it's Arnold Hansen from Glen Arbor.
Okay. Was he in the area here?
He died.
I mean, did he have anything to do up here at Port Oneida particularly?
No, not that I know of, unless he might have went to school a little, or I'm not really sure about that.
Okay.
And this is Marshall Miller from Empire.
Okay.
And this is his wife, forget what her name, Gladys Miller.
Okay.
And this is Maud Winfield.
From Ed Winfield down there near the homestead?
Yes.
They had a place on M22, just
yes.
beside of the homestead entrance.
Mm-hmm. And this is Clara Hansen, Ann Hansen's wife.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Phyllis Neely, and her husband is on the end of this row, which I'll explain later.
Okay.
And this is Clara Bain. And this one here is Marie Eckert.
Now, Clara Bain, where was she from?
Good Harbor.
Okay. And Marie Eckert, did she grow up down there in the Cluth place?
Yes, and she is still living. She's 90-some years old.
Okay.
And this is Viola Deckel. And she's a sister-in-law to Clara Bain. And this is yours truly, Laura Basch. And this is Ellsworth Bain by Clara Bain's husband. And this is Mrs. Ed Chester, and this is Phyllis Zeitz.
See, we already saw a Mrs. Chester, didn't we? Oh, no.
No, Ed Chester.
Okay. And then you mentioned Mrs. Zeitz from the Weaver place.
Yeah. Well, no, she's from Glen Arbor. She was down from Lake Michigan.
Oh.
This is another Zeitz.
Oh, okay.
And this is Mrs. Lane, who lived on Lane Road.
Where on Lane Road did she live?
Right across, well, she's the last house down there by Lake Michigan. I think it's probably the only house that's on Lane Road now.
Mm-hmm, the place that's still there at the turnaround.
Yes,
How long was she there?
Well, I really don't know, but I think the Utleys built that house, but I'm not sure. Wait.
I'll stop it just a minute.
Oaks. Oaks has built that house.
Okay.
Now, let's see, which one did I have last?
What about behind Mrs. Lane? Did we cover her?
Oh, that's Carrie Donner.
Who is she?
And she is Norval Donner's wife. She was a Fritz.
Okay, where were they?
Well, they lived in Traverse City the last.
Okay. Any
And-
particular connection to Port Oneida that you know of?
Well, yes, Narvel's stepfather was Frank Deckel, and he lived what is we know as a Clet place.
Mm-hmm.
And from the Clet, when he sold it to the Clets, he sold it. Frank Deckel sold it. He sold it to Sam McLaughlin, and from Sam McLaughlin they went to Clets.
Right.
And then we have Agnes Kelderhouse, who lived right across from the school, and that's the Kelderhouse family where that came from, the schoolhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Evelyn Kropp.
Mm-hmm.
And
From
this,
up the road toward 651.
yes, and then this is Clara Hanson, and she lived in Glen Arbor. I just don't know where she lives now. And this is Elsie Bartnick, but she was an Eckert, and she was raised down here on the Cluth place, which we have now. And this is Gib Zeitz, and that Gib Zeitz is Phyllis Zeitz's husband.
From up on Lake Michigan Road.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is Wilbur Kropp, and that's Evelyn Kropp's here,
Mm-hmm.
her husband.
They're a little bit out of the Port Oneida area. Did they have any particular connection to the immediate area here, or just?
Oh, yes. Evelyn did. Evelyn was raised up on South School Lake Road.
Mm-hmm.
She was a Deckel.
Oh, okay.
And so she went to North Unity School.
Oh.
And then this is Phyllis Neely's father, but I do not know his name.
Okay.
And then this is Phyllis Neely's husband, who was killed down at the homestead. A big chunk of ice come off the roof and hit him in the head.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Who do we have here?
Well, here we got my Laura Basch, and her arm is around one of the cows, and they were all special to me, and they were all our milk cows that we had at one time on our farm here.
Went too far and got out of focus. How many cattle did you have?
Well, when my husband passed away in 1965, were milking 15 milk cows. Besides, we had young stock and that all added up to around 50 head. And part of them, we would pasture down on what we call the commons, or down toward Lake Michigan. And then I had to get rid of all of them because I wasn't able to take care of them.
Did you mostly always have Guernseys?
Yes. And the thing about it was, with our herd of cattle, Mr. Spanik, Joe Spanik, tested cream in Traverse City before they come and pick the milk up at Crafts did it. And he could never get a good test on it because the test was so high. And we couldn't bring the test down at all.
What does that mean, that the test was high?
Well, the test was so high. After you separated the milk,
Mm-hmm.
then you'd get the cream, but the cream would run so thick, and that test was so high that it was hard to test it. He'd say, "Can't you turn that separator down some?" We turned it down as much as we could,
Mm-hmm.
but we still could not get down, and he figured we had the best cream of anybody around.
Huh. And did you end up doing a lot of the care for the cattle in the milk herd?
Oh, yes. I was mainly the one that took care of the milk herd, and my husband farmed or trucked or like that. And and then later on, Kraft came in and picked the milk up and took it down to Cadillac for the Kraft company and cheese and whatever they made.
Okay, where are we now?
We are at the property, the Zeitz place is above here, and this is a road in front of the old Weaver place, which is still standing there but looking pretty dilapidated. But this is a good picture of the house and what it was. And right here is a pear tree that had the best sugar pears on that I ever eaten.
I'm just going to take a minute and zoom in on this so we can see what the Weaver place used to look like. Got all those aspens growing all around it now, and completely different. Okay, who's this, Laura?
This is my grandfather, Ole Olsen, and he came from Norway and landed in Northport.
And then where did he spend his life after that?
Well, when he come to Norway, all he had was a dime in his pocket, and he was 16 years old. And then from there he went over to North Manitoba Island, and he met my grandmother, and they got married, and then from there they moved over to the mainlands here, and they had their homes in different places. They had, at one time, I think they built the Howard Olson house, and then they lived where Milton Basch lived, and they went to Leland, and then they come back, and they lived in a little, well, I'd say a tar paper house-like, over there beyond the courier place, just through the woods there. I can remember him sitting in a big rocking chair. And then from there, during the 1920, when the flu was so bad, they were living with Ellen Miller, their daughter, and there he died.
And you told more about him on our audio tape, so I won't
Yes.
ask you to go into too much more. But when you say he lived near the courier place, but was it across the road from the courier place, or on,
No,
what was on that side?
it was across the road,
Oh yeah,
and just before you go in
yeah,
come into the woods there.
yeah. I remember that now. That we'll identify that when we
Mhm.
get out here, when the roads clear out a little bit. Okay. And how about this?
Now, this is Magdalena Olsen, and she had been Carson Burfeen's oldest daughter. And when he met her on the island, and then they got married in Tonawanda, New York. And then from there they came back, and they've lived in all these different places that I spoke of.
And who's this nice-looking family?
Well, this is my grandfather, Ole Olsen, and this is my grandma, Magdalena Olsen, and this is Charlie Olsen, their son, and then Nels Olsen, and their daughter, Ellen, and this may be Bill Olsen, and I think that's who it was, and that's just the family, part of the family. My father isn't on it, and he's the oldest one.
Okay. Who's this?
This is Mrs. Carson Burfeen, and it's one of her children, but I'm not sure which one. And that's about all I know about this picture.
Okay, but Mrs. Carson Burfeen was your great-grandmother.
That's right.
Okay, now what's this one, Laura?
This is the Ole Olsen family, and this is my grandfather and my grandmother.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll come in here. Okay, I'm focused on your grandfather there, and there's your grandmother. And right over here on this side, who's standing up?
That's John Olsen, their son, and he got drowned. He rode a horse out into I believe it was Lake Michigan, and the horse threw him into the water and he didn't survive.
When he was not much older than what we see him there?
That's right. He's in that area.
Did
He was a young man.
Never got married or anything?
Yes, he got married, and his wife is passed away now. He has one son, and I think he's going to, and he owned a big store in Lansing.
Next to him is who?
The next one to him is Nels Olson, and he was married, and he had 2 daughters and a son, and his son is Gerald Olson, who owns all the Olson stores in Traverse City and Manistee and all those places.
Mm-hmm. And then the woman in white in the middle?
That's Ellen Miller, and she married Fred Miller, and as far as I know, she just got 2 daughters living, and the one is Mrs. Etta Dare, and the other one is Hazel Chapman.
Hazel Chapman isn't anyone we know anything about around here in recent years, is it?
No,
Okay. And the man then to her left?
That's George Olson, and he is my father. And he used to work in the iron mills at Elk Rapids at one time in his life. But then he came back and he married my mother, and they farmed. And he worked in the woods, cutting logs and like that.
We've learned a lot about him 2 years ago, so I
Yes.
won't take too much more time on that. And the last man in the picture?
Is Charlie Olson, and he's a father to Lorraine Mason. And he did about the same as my father did, working in the woods and farming.
He had the real pretty farm down on M22 that's
Yes.
still there, with the red barn and the white house.
Yes.
And then his son was Everett that
Yes.
had that farm more recently?
Yes, that's who the park brought it from.
Yeah.
And then this lower picture down.
Okay, our battery just ran out on us. We've got a new one in. I think it caught what you told about Charlie Olson here. And now I'm going to move on down. And who is the fellow down in the corner?
And that's Bill Olson. And he was my uncle. And he served in the First World War in Germany, and he was gassed. And when he got home, he never was well after that. And he lived in Traverse City on Front and Elmwood, but he finally died from the results of that gassing.
Who do we have here?
Here we have my grandmother Olson, and she's here by the back of her house that was built by my Uncle Nels for her, and my dad helped furnish the lumber port so she could have a place of her own, and it was situated next to where Everett Olson's place was. And there's a nice little golden delicious apple tree right out back of what it was. And I'm not sure who this little child is. It could be my children, or it could be Lorraine Mason and them. But I'm just not sure who it is. And afterwards, this house was sold. The park sold it after they had sold to the park, and that was moved up on South School Lake Road to Julius Shelda's place. And then when, let's see, what was his name? A Deco boy bought that place. Then he sold the house, and it was moved across the road, and they've made a beautiful home of it.
Okay, where are we here, Laura?
Well, this is the pasture and the fence that was up above the house. And of course I took this all down. And when I was planting trees, I was up in this area here, and I heard something like my tractor was starting to move, and this was on the Ford, and I looked, and here it was starting to move. Well, my husband always said, don't you ever climb in front of it. If it moves, let her ride. And so I stayed away from it, and it went down through one, well, it's so different up here now, but it went like this, and then down over the hill here, and then up here, and it ended up way up here in the side hill, and then it turned and went into a brush pile here, and I just walked down and started it and took right off, and I came home.
Everything was okay, huh?
Yeah, everything was okay. That's a good old Ford tractor for you.
You bet.
Enjoy the birds.
Yeah, you and I can watch your birds out here.
Boy, I sure enjoy them.
Yeah. We got chickadees mostly today. Blue jays. The squirrels been leaving them alone? Your seed?
A big fox squirrel got up there today, but when he got a taste of the seeds, that was it.
Uh-huh. You still got your pepper powder on them?
Yes, that's right.
Seems to work pretty well.
Mm-hmm. So Bill, he's coming up tomorrow. He's getting me some groceries this evening when he goes to town to shop, and then he's a few things that they got on sale there at Tom's, and he's gonna bring the groceries up tomorrow. Boy, they really eat a lot of macaroni at their house.
Yeah. Now we're on tape here. That stuff you put on the bird seed, that's a special stuff that's made just for that purpose?
Yes. In fact, your brother said it was made right over near his place.
Yeah.
And it's called Squirrel Away.
Oh, yeah. And yet the birds eat it and it doesn't seem to bother them.
That's right.
Of course, it's on the shelves and they're eating what's in it.
But this sure keeps the squirrels away.
Yeah. I think it's made from cayenne pepper, right?
That's what I think it is. That's what Bill thinks it is. But I'm kind of careful now. I don't use any more of it because it kind of bothered me. I did mix once or twice, and oh boy, did it burn my nose.
Yeah, I got that little bit in my eye one time when I was
know.
putting it out there. It's pretty nasty.
But
Oh, go ahead.
it's just one of those things that I'm glad because I've only used 50 pounds of bird seed so far.
Yeah.
So 100 pounds will do me for the winter.
Okay, well, we can probably go ahead and talk about this picture. We were talking, well, to introduce the tape here, it's February 3rd, and this is a continuation of the previous tape. Tom Van Zorn with Laura Basch. And you told about the tractor getting out of control on this picture. And this is a beautiful picture taken from your yard here, right?
That's right.
And looking out over Good Harbor Bay.
Yes. And it's really a lot of, the woods are so thick there, you can see. And this is the Good Harbor Bay, and this is, of course, all that field. I guess it's what they call Mountain View now, too, over there.
Okay, this is this picture of the children at the Portonita School again that we looked at earlier, and I kind of botched it. I jerked it around a lot, and so we're going to go through this again once more, and I'll zoom in on one of these children here. We could start down here at this end, and then if you will see how far I can go, just a second here. Okay, now starting down at the left end, who do we have?
This is Archie Brunson, and he is Joe Brunson's boy.
So he would have grown up at the Brunson farm there on Thorson?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
And This is Charlie Eckert, and that was George Eckert's boy.
From down at the Cluth Bauer place.
No.
No?
That was over a house on Baker Road from Gordon Bash's place.
Oh, yeah, okay. You're going to show us that site here when we get out in the car.
And then this is Ivan Basch, and he's Martin Bash's boy. I think he's the oldest one.
Does that make him Milton and Gordon's brother?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is Wallace Eckert, and that was Henry Eckert's boy. And he is the one that owned the Cluth place, and they bought it from.
Okay.
Then this is Charlie Miller, and he was John Miller's boy, and they lived up on Miller Road.
Mm-hmm. At the end of the road.
Yes, And then this is Bill Basch and Art Basch, and they were brothers, and they were Klaus Basch's boys, and they were raised on the farm that I'm living on now.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is Anna Miller. Oh, wait, this was not Anna Miller, is it?
Want me to stop it a minute?
No, I don't know who that is.
Okay.
This is Roland Kelderhouse, and that's Bill Kelderhouse's boy. And that's where the farm that this schoolhouse was taken, well, they took a corner off of it to build this Fortinita school.
Mm-hmm.
Then this is Anna Miller, and that's John Miller's daughter, a sister to Charlie Miller.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these I do not know.
Sure.
And this is Helen Eckert, and that's Henry Eckert's daughter, the oldest one.
Mm-hmm.
And she also was raised down here on the Cluth place. Then this is Rose Kelderhouse, and that was Bill Kelderhouse's daughter. I'm getting a little ahead here. This is Jimmy Riggs, and that was Charlie Riggs's boy.
Now, where were they located?
They were located, I think probably at the time, down here on Shell Lake. I'm not sure.
Wouldn't he have gone to the North Unity School, though?
No, they didn't. For some reason, I don't know why. And this is Franklin Deckel, and he is was Frank Deckel's boy. And we have to go clear back to this one. I didn't get this one.
Okay. Where are you now?
Right here.
Okay.
And this is Walter Basch, and that's Martin Bash's boy, and he was a brother to Ivan.
Let's see. Okay, and Milton and Gordon.
Mm-hmm.
Where did he fit in there age-wise?
Right next to Ivan.
Second one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did we get this one?
I don't know. Who is it?
This is Wallace Eckert.
Okay. From which Eckert, then, was his father?
That's a Henry Eckert family. Yeah, we
Okay.
did because I said they bought the place from it.
Okay. Anybody else?
Then we'll go back over here.
Okay. Okay.
And this is Mabel Eckert. And that's, I don't know if I had her or not, that's George Eckert's girl. They
Okay.
just had two children.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Rose Kelderhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Then, now let's see. This is Wilma Eckert. And
Okay.
that was Henry Eckert's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Mildred Basch, and she was Martin Bash's daughter.
So that would have been about, was she the third one then?
Yes, I think she was the third.
Okay.
And This is Hartley Deco, I think. And that was Frank Deco's boy. And I don't believe I know any of the rest of them here. Because that was, a lot of that was before my time almost.
Yeah, because if your husband is in here, and he was, what, 11 years older than you?
I think so. 15 years older than me.
15 years. I'm surprised you know as many of these as you do.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were mostly just about grown up by the time
Yes.
you were. Go ahead.
That's about all.
Okay. The Deco children that you mentioned, were they on the Deco Klett, what became the Klett farm?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, it's kind of hard to show much here, but what is this, Laura?
Well, I'd say it's a certificate of my husband's grandfather, and when they got the place from the government, and I think it was whatever years on there, and then 100 years later I got another certificate of it from Consumers Powers.
The Centennial Farm thing?
Yes, Centennial Farm.
Uh-huh. So this is the original homestead deed, I believe, or might something, I don't know just what the technical term would be, but it's signed by the president at the time, U.S. Grant. I'll kind of try and come in on it here a little bit. Can't really adjust things just the way I want. That's U.S. Grant's signature in the center there. It shows that it's made out to Nicholas Basch. And it's apparently certificate number, let's see, okay, 1437 up in the upper left corner there. Okay, what do we have here, Laura?
Well, we got my old barn and my flowers that's all here and here in front of it. And of course I'm not able to do what I used to do, but I'd like to hope that I could keep them up and keep them nice for the time I can take care of them at least.
You kept them up like this pretty recently, didn't you?
Yes, and they're beautiful yet. The oriental poppies and all that come out beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a good picture of the barn and all is the way I feel about it.
Mm-hmm. February 24, and Laura has found some more pictures that someone had, one of her daughters, I believe, and so we've got some more pictures to look at and learn from. And here's the first one. What do we have here, Laura?
They have a Tanawatha new resort over by Glen Lake, and it later was Old Orchard Inn. And while it was Old Orchard Inn, I worked there for the Gregories. And Carl Olson and his wife Lucy were the caretakers over there at the time. And in fact, Lucy passed away there. and so did their daughter Lois. And it's was really a nice resort. But Carl Olson and Bob Olson also were there with their parents.
And this was right on Big Glen, this side of the Narrows, kind of along M22 past Glen Arbor, is that right?
That's right.
Okay. I'm just going to go through and bring this close up and pan across it a minute so we can get all the details. This is an old postcard. And there it shows that it had earlier, you believe, been called Tonawatha?
Yes, that's what I heard.
And this was where you used to bring berries that you would go out and pick when you were young.
Yes, usually Ivan Basch, he was working for him at the time. That's Milton Basch's brother. And he used to come up and get the berries for us because we had no means of taking them up there. And I can remember they were $5 a case. And boy, we thought we was really making money.
Sounds like a pretty hard way to make money to me. But I suppose good money at the time, huh?
That's right.
Okay, next one, Laura.
Well, this is my husband Arthur, and sitting by the corn crib that he had built, and he had a little stoop on there where he could get it, or step into it, and that's what he's sitting on. And he's got our dog, and that we had just got from Iowa, and he's supposed to have been a real good healer when they advertised him, but he didn't prove it out to us very well. And he eventually got bit by a dog bit by a raccoon that had a rabies in January, and he died from it.
So Art built this corn crib?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, Laura?
And this is the North Unity School where I got all my education from. In fact, my father did too. And over here is a toboggan that we were sitting on, and you'll see the front of it. Then this is my sister Ethel, my brother Howard.
Okay, just a second, please, Laura, and I'll bring this in a little closer so we can see a little better. Okay, go ahead, please.
I should go from there.
Start over, would you, please?
This is my sister Ethel.
Okay.
And this is my brother Howard, myself. And over here is Milton Manny. And
Now, Milton Manny would have lived where at that time?
This is Milton Jr., my age. His father was a teacher, so I think at Glen Arbor at the time, maybe not. I don't know just exactly where they were. But he had to be here if Milton was here.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is Bella Wheeler and Louise Wheeler and Olive Deco here. And then way back here, I can't tell who the others are, but way back is a Cortland Hilton.
Okay. Now, the Mannies lived in the farm on Narada Lake for a while, didn't they?
Yes, they owned it.
Okay.
Yes, they lived there quite a few years.
So the Manny child there may have been living there?
He was born in the old Cricket House. Milton was. And the other two were born, I think, Lorna and Artis, in either Northport or here in this house down here on Lake Narada.
Okay.
But I do know that Milton was born in the old Cricket House.
Okay. And then you had a Deco here, would have been in the Klett farm.
No, that would be the Deco that lives up on School Lake Road. Her father was John Deco.
And they were living on School Lake Road when they went to school here?
Yes.
At North Unity? They came all the way from School Lake Road?
That's right. And the Wheeler girls lived on Wheeler Road.
Mm-hmm. And then who was the last one you said? It was an unfamiliar name to me.
Cortland Hilton. And he lived also on the Wheeler Road, but he lived in what the Smith's house used to be at last, and that was moved away after the park bought it to, I believe, Long Lake.
Okay. And this shows your old school with the sort of, what is that on the front, by the front door? An entryway?
Yes, that was an entryway.
And just a place to step in and maybe take off your coats and things like that?
No, we couldn't really take those off because we always had a pile of wood on one side a little. So we had some dry wood in the house, and of course you can see the pile of wood here, right here, that they had piled out there.
Mm-hmm. And then the wood would be brought from there into the front entry room?
Yes.
And it was stored in that room?
Yes.
Okay, who do we have here, Laura?
That's my father, George Olson, and that picture of him is taken down by the Montfort Cottage, and you can see the lake there now, and he worked down there when that cottage was being built. And so Claude Salter and him was the main carpenters there. And the stones to that cottage was hauled down. He hauled them down from his farm way down below there.
Mm-hmm. And let's see, did you say who the woman is there? That's your mother, right?
Yeah, that's my mother. And it was taken up by the farm place.
And is that kind of the way you normally would picture your dad, dressed about, like that, with that hat, type of hat and so on? That kind of a typical work clothes for him?
Yes, that was his typical work clothes, period. He would think of nothing of going to Traverse City or any place like that with the same clothes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This is a picture of my daughter Jean, and she used to take our old Dick horse, he was a big Belgian, and ride him up these steps and get him up on top of the porch there and turn him around and then let him come back down again. And she never rode with a saddle. She always rode bareback. And this picture of the house is before I put the front addition on of the porch and that. I had to have a new porch replaced here because it was cracked. And so then after I had that done, I put the addition on. So this is what the house looked like before. And that's done 17 years ago.
That the addition was added on.
Yes.
But the picture is much older than that.
Oh, yes, the picture is, that picture must be,
Well, it says 1945.
yeah.
Okay. Who do we have here?
Well, this is Klaus Basch, my husband's father. That's his mother, and that's our oldest daughter, Arlene. And they're in the back here, where this picture's taken, and there was some apple trees. There was apple trees all along here, and was a wonderful spot way over here. And back of all this was a lot of apple trees, which I'd kind of forgot till now I recall it, and of all different types. And so now we always have called it the old orchard, but I just kind of forgot why we'd done it. And they had every type of apple you could think about.
And that was kind of back, as you're looking at the house from the road, it would be to the right of the house, correct?
Yes, uh-huh.
And kind of up above where there's a few trees now down by the road.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, what's this one, Laura?
Oh, this is Lorraine Olson Mason now. And this is Virginia Olson Blaines, but Virginia has passed on. And this is my second daughter, Jean. And this is our old 35 Ford. And I used to go blackberrying and all that up on the Wersaufer place wherever I wanted to go. And I never could put a scratch on it. It had such a good finish. Of course, that's a lot better than what we're getting today.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't make any difference where I wanted to go. I could get through the woods with that because it wasn't too big either. So I always remember that as a good car.
Yes.
Oh, I hate to see my husband sell that car.
So these Olson girls were daughters of Charles
That's
Olson,
right.
your father's brother.
Yes, that's right.
And they grew up down in the Charles Olson farm on M22.
That's right.
Now, who do we have here?
Well, that's yours truly, Laura Basch. And this was taken just above the house here. And this is our first old gas pump. Then Bumps Atkinson delivered gas to us from Mobile in Traverse City. And this is the dog that we got from Iowa. And he didn't turn out to be a good healer. I think if I'd have had him just by myself, he might have been, because I had more patience with the dog.
Okay.
This is my husband Arthur on the Belgian horse. This is Lady, and this was Dick. And he bought him from Iowa in 1930. And we had them for many years. They were really a wonderful team.
Okay.
This is cutting wood at our place. I don't know just where it was on the place. And it was the old buzz rig that we used years ago before there was any guards or anything on. And this is my brother-in-law, Harold Basch. This is my husband. And this is my brother Alfred and my brother Howard. And they used to, you watch the pile of wood back here, and they would probably do this whole pile in one day. And that was our winter supplies for the next year.
Really worked up a storm, it sounds like. Okay, what do we have here, Laura?
Well, we just have a picture, a Pierce stocking truck, and a load of logs when they was coming out of the Burfine woods. And they stopped in front of the house, and I got a picture of them. And so I thought it was a good picture to keep.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What do we have here?
Here we have the back of our granny's roost, which was the ice house at that time. And the door was cut in half here, so that as they brought the ice in and put it in there, then when they got that part done, they'd close up that and have this open. And this is Joe Brunson there, and he and Art's brother Bill, and I think Art's brother Bill is shoveling the sawdust out of a bin here, and Joe is putting it in there for him. And there's somebody up in there packing ice, but then they'd always have either team or a truck and haul the ice up to this from some of the lakes.
Mm-hmm. And Joe Brunson lived over on Thorson Road?
That's right.
Would they have probably gotten this the ice, bought it from a place that that did it commercially, or they would have loaded it directly, their own supply here at
They
the
would
start?
go down to Shell Lake and get it on the average.
Mm-hmm.
Or otherwise Mud Lake, which we call there by couriers.
Mm-hmm.
Or I think maybe once in a while they got it from the Manny Lake. Wherever was easiest to get it from.
Mm-hmm. And the, let's see, well, okay, good. Yeah, so then that would just provide for your own family supply, or your own farm and family.
Yes, that would. And you take it out of there. We had a refrigerator in the granny's roost for a while. I don't remember where they had it before that. and they would get a cake of ice out and put it in the refrigerator and keep it for until it got down, and then they would fill it up again.
Now, how many of the farms around the area do you think had their own ice house to keep their own supply? And did some of them have to buy ice periodically from someone else?
No, I think they all had their own ice house about, and I can remember Camp Kohana buying, I'm sure, from Fred Baker. And that's the only place I can remember we ever bought any ice over there for.
So maybe he put up a little extra with the idea of
Yeah.
selling it to people that might run low or others?
That's right.
And then there were the places like Bramers and so on down around town that would provide the townspeople.
Oh, yes, and all around, whoever was have a cottage on Glen Lake or like that, they'd provide the ice from there.
Okay.
This is my husband Arthur, and this is Alfred Mason. And when he worked at Day's Farm, he worked there for quite a long time and run it. And it was in the wintertime, and he brought their a John Deere tractor and a shredder over, and they shredded our corn. And you can see the old-time wheels on the wagon here that they used, and here is the kind of a rack that we used then, had the ends on, and this here would go down into this, slide into this here box like, and all you gotta do is lift it out. And they're loading it in front of our house to take it back to Day's Farm.
Okay, where are we here?
Here we are at the Port Oneida School, and I think I helped make practice the kids for our Christmas program. And this is Mrs. McLaughlin, Ollie Thorson.
Okay, excuse me just a moment, Laura, and I'll kind of zoom in here a little closer so we can see these folks. Who is Mrs. McLaughlin?
She and her husband used to own the Klett farm before they owned it. They bought it from Frank Deckel, and then they sold it to Klett.
Yeah. Now, was she a teacher at the school?
No, she wasn't.
Okay.
This might have been a Sunday school program, too. I'm not sure.
Okay.
And this is Ollie Thorson,
Mm-hmm.
Ella Basch, Lottie Kelderhouse. It's one of the Baker girls.
Excuse me just a minute, Laura. I think Ella Basch, I think you might have covered in an earlier picture, but for sure now, which Basch family was she from?
She was from Martin Basch. She's Milton and Gordon Basch's mother.
Okay. And then the next one after her was who?
Lottie Kelderhouse. They had the place across from the clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the Baker girls, but I'm not sure which one.
Okay.
And Mrs. Baker. And this is one of the Smith girls. And Myrtle Kelderhouse. This is Lottie's girl.
And the Smith girl you mentioned was up on Wheeler Road?
No, she was Betty Garthy's sister, I think. One of them are. Now, I don't know which. If this is Betty, then this is June.
Mm-hmm.
But they were the Smiths that lived next to the clubhouse there. And this is Wayne Richardson. And this is Jim Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the Betty Garthy, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This is my brother Howard. And this one here was a Percheron horse that my dad got when it was a colt from Moe's Champney in Traverse City. I'm not sure what horse this was. And this was taken down on Walter Hoodie's place now. And you can see the barn there, part of it, and also the windmill.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
In other words, this is where you grew up.
That's right. That's where I grew up.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This is Albert Prowse, and it's taken where Walter Hoodies now lived, but it was just the older house that was there then. And it was taken in 1939 or 40 when Howard had built his barn, and this was at the barn raising bee. And this is Frank Brunson, and he's holding a keg of beer. And they both helped with the barn raising.
Okay.
This is a picture of Arnold Hanson cutting ice with an ice rig that he and my husband Arthur put together. And you will notice the blade here, it's a crosscut saw, and they would drop it down like this lever is up here. But if they wanted to take it out of the ice, then they would pull it down this way so as to bring it out. And they cut many, many tons of ice and filled ice houses with it. And in the end, they even had a loader with it.
You have any idea how this thing is powered?
With a Ford motor, old Ford motor.
And any idea what time era this would occur in?
Well, it was about 50 years ago.
Okay.
Because my daughters was around 10 years old, I think, or in that area when it was taken. Maybe a little older than that.
Okay.
All right, this is my father-in-law, Klaus Basch, and this is Charlie Eckert. And he used to help us quite a lot. His folks lived across from Gordon Basch. In fact, Charlie was killed in an electric line wire. And they were hauling the hay, and this was the Belgium horses. And the one thing that my father-in-law and my husband had trouble with, he always wanted to keep them so fat and shiny. And my husband said, "Yeah, you've been graining them again." He'd say, "No, I haven't." Well, he knew he had been, and the horses were just on the bit all the time if you didn't keep it down. And it also made them so fat they got sore shoulders from pulling. But they were great horses.
Now, what exactly do you mean when you say they were on the bit?
They just, you gotta hold them every minute, or they'd just be going right down the road so fast it wouldn't be funny.
Huh. Okay. Who do we have here?
This is my sister Ethel, the youngest sister, and this is my mother. And Ethel passed away when she was 21 years old, and here you can see the old popple trees in front of the house by Walter's.
Is Ethel the one that had Walter and?
No.
Oh. Okay.
Okay, this is a picture of Laura Basch, and this is taken down at Walter Hoodie's, and this is the windmill they have now. And Walter informed me that the wheel part up here is not the original one, that they put a different one on, but all this other coming up on the ground is the original that they bought. And this is a shed that was over the pump house before the windmill was there. And I can remember my dad having a wooden pork barrel and a couple wooden other barrels, all covered good, but they push in and all salted down, and that would be our supply of meat for the winter. And they moved it over here. And it took me a bit to figure out what it was, but now I know.
Okay.
This is a picture of my husband, not the first big buck that he got, but one morning it was hard for him to get a deer, and I said to him, "Art, I will finish the chores, and you go down and you sit down here by sand dunes below the hill and the snore place there near the hidden lake, and I'll come down through, I'll rap on the trees. And I went on down, and when I got on the flats, I wasn't 100 feet from him, and I said, "Here he comes." And I'd no more than said it when I heard the shot. And I got over there, and he was just breathing his last, and I was sorry I even said it because it hurt me so. But anyway, that's the buck he got there, and then we, of course, we brought it home. And this is a load of wood that you can see how we used to throw it up onto the truck, and we'd tip the box up to unload it. And this is the corn crib my husband built. He also built this pump house.
Okay. Who do we have here?
Well, this is my father-in-law, House Basch, with one of the big bulls we had. And this is taken out in front of the barn. And then this coop that we have over here above the golf cart shed now was, I think that was the first place they ever had it, but that was always on skids and they could move it other places. And then the chicken coop used to be over here. And I think there's a couple apple trees over in that side of the place too now when I see them. This is a picture of my husband's grandmother, and her name was Catherine Basch, and she lived to be almost 100 years old.
I'll just come in a little closer here with it.
In fact, my husband said he hoped that, and my father said he hoped he could see her live to be 100 years old, and she didn't get quite that far, and neither did he. They died about 9 days apart.
And this is the back side of that last picture. It apparently, you could get your picture taken and have it turned into a postcard. And it's addressed simply to Klaus Basch, Port Oneida. I guess it probably says Michigan under the, there's something on there. And it says, "Klaus, Anna and I will be out there about the 11th of November." And then we can't read what else it says there. But who was Anna then?
Anna was it was her oldest daughter and the sister to my father-in-law.
And so who do you figure was the writer of this card?
I think her husband probably was, which was Art McManus.
Okay.
This is my husband, Arthur, and the proud daddy of these two little girls. And this is Arlene, and this is Jean. And it's taken on the back of our place up here.
It looks like somebody added a little color there to the girls.
I think they did.
Think somebody, one of them may have done that?
No, I don't. Well, they could have.
Okay, where is this?
This is right back of the barn, or in fact, maybe side of the barn, where we had a pig pen. And you can see this here is the road that it goes back. And of course, that was before we really had a road there. And we had all those big rock piled along the side there that we'd hauled with the Belgian horses. And we had what they call a travoid to haul them out of the fields.
The road was Basch Road?
Yeah, right out here.
Right out here. Okay. Okay, you were going to tell something else here?
Yes, and you can see how bare these fields were there then. And we used to go over here where we could see the lake, and when Frank Backlav used to come through with his boat, he'd blow John Smith's telephone ring, and many times we went over there and flashed to him, and it made him so happy to think we'd do that, because he said, out in the lakes there, you was 1,000 miles from nowhere and only a mile from home.
Now, what about the telephone, did you say?
No, well, he'd pass the, like we had a telephone on the wall,
Mm-hmm.
and the ring would be maybe too long and a short.
I
Everybody
see.
had a different ring.
Your own pattern.
Yes, and then it rang in on everybody's house.
Uh-huh.
And we'd hear that, and then we'd go over there,
Oh. Uh-huh.
and they were so pleased about that.
Yeah. It shows some of your old fences that are all gone now.
Oh, yes.
Most of the fences were barbed wire on wooden posts.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And did you buy the posts or harvest them somewhere?
Well, sometimes they harvest them, and sometimes they bought them.
Mm-hmm. Cedar trees?
Yeah. I used to take my trailer when Judy was small, and I would fix all these fences through here. And I had a great big cardboard box in the trailer, and I'd put her toys in there and let her play, and I'd go along beside the fence and fix it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now this is the Basch house before I did any fixing on it or anything. And this is the way the front porch used to look. And it had stones all in front. Well, the stones are still there, but I made it a block wider. And this was the step here. Then I had shrubs here. And this was the front porch to the kitchen. And now this is my sewing room. I had it enclosed. Then as we come over here, we have the rain troughs coming down, and here is a cistern. And that was all boarded in, and it was a pot-bellied cistern. And then we had a horse we always turned out and left him run wherever he wanted to go, and he'd always come back home. He went clear down the road now. And one day I said to my husband, he always had to cross over on this here. And I had wanted him to put a fence around it. So the oldest girls were home then yet. And we was eating dinner, and Jim walked across there, and I said to my husband, one of these days that horse is going in the cistern. And he said, I'm going right out and put a fence there. And the girl says, it'll be done when Mother does it. Well, it went along for a long time. One day I was upstairs doing the cleaning. He was out looking for a thrash machine, and I heard a noise. And I run down. I couldn't see Jim anyplace. I finally went over and I looked in the cistern, and here was Jim in this cistern. And he was standing though, but his feet were both feet was all together because it was pot-bellied. So I had to hunt my husband up, and I found him at Thorson's by telephone, and I asked if I could talk to him right away because it was an emergency. And he come in and he said, what's up? And I said, Jim's in the cistern. He says, how in the hell did he get in there? I says, because you didn't put a fence around there. Well, I might tell her too how we got him out.
Okay. So
then he got the truck, and he put a rope on it, and it had a cement marl box on, and he stood by the horse and tried to talk to him, and I had broke away and got the horse quieted enough. Then he says, now I'll put a block on there and you pull when I tell him to come. Well, he was getting tired and he couldn't make it out. And so I said, Art, we have got to do something else because that horse is getting too tired. He's going to lay down at last. So we got Milton and Gordon. I went down and got Milton and Gordon, but by the time I got back, he had him out, and he had to put 9 stitches in his rump. Then Mr. Thorson, later years, he had a stroke, and I went up there. He gave us some potatoes, and he said, Laura, I had time to do some thinking while I was in the hospital. He said, if I had shut that machine down and helped you guys get that horse out, as I should have done, there'd have been no problem at all. He says, I'll never really live this down. And I guess that's a good thing to put in there.
Mm-hmm.
I really do.
Yep.
It gives a person the chance to think.
Mm-hmm.
He was that way. There's an under.
Okay.
This is the thrash machine with, as it's taken into the barn, there's a tongue here you can see how they backed it in, and then the grain would be up in the barn here, and then they would throw it down, and it would go down in here and brought down into the machine and thrashed. There's a pound of grain out, and then there was a spout on the side here where it come out, and they would put it into sacks and then take it into a granary. And this is my daughter Jean, and this is my nephew Walter Hoodie, taken in front of the machine. And it's taken at our old barn here.
Now, whose machine was that?
This was the Anderson machine,
Yeah.
Ernie and Henry Anderson's machine.
It's April 12, 1995, and we're back to continue with some more pictures that Laura has found. And so this is something we've seen a little bit before. You've mentioned about this. Why don't you tell just briefly what we have pictures of here, Laura?
Well, this is the asphalt plant that used to be down here on M22 at Stabner Road. And it was, here was a stockpile for the gravel. And here's...
Let me zoom in on that one. Excuse me just a minute. We'll get a close-up picture. It shows just how different things were there at that time. That big, huge pile. That's that one there. Okay.
Well, and then they hauled that in when they had time, and then they had to put it into the... I don't remember whether a conveyor belt or what put it into the where they did the mixing. Mm-hmm. And this is the tank that they had to heat that oil.
That was right over here.
Yes. And over here...
excuse me just a minute now. The tank there, are you saying, was that held the fuel? Or,
yeah.
Okay. That they would use for heating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
See, they had to mix that. I think that was tar there, and then that was heated, and then that went into the gravel and that, and then that stuff was really hot when they come out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, these trucks, they would haul it, and here's my husband's truck, but here he's hauling gravel up into the pile there. But they would haul it and go down the road to wherever they was going to dump it, and the steam would just roll right off of it.
Mm-hmm. So he would bring gravel in that they would stockpile, and then that would become a component of the asphalt they produced?
Yes, uh-huh.
And did he also haul the finished asphalt away or not?
Yes, he did.
Did you have to have a different truck for that?
No.
And he'd do that when they were working on something in the area here?
That's right. He worked on all of M22 down here that they put through. In fact, he worked on many roads, not just this one, but he was always on roads like Sutton's Bay and all through there and downstate.
You have any idea how long this asphalt plant was here?
No, I don't.
Around what time period was it around here?
Well, it was here in the around 1940.
Okay.
Because my brother went on the Great Lakes when that asphalt was on, and that was in 39 or 40.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think we've looked at one similar to this before, but it may have been a little different. What is this here?
Well, this is my father-in-law, Klaus Basch, pitching hay up onto a load, and young Charlie Eckert is the one that's loading it. And that was the way we used to put it in the barn, and then you'd have a tongs when you went into the barn, and pitch it down in and haul it up with a cable. And this is the Belgium horses that we got from Missouri.
Now, to get the hay to this point, did you use the rake to rake it into windrows or something?
Yes, we cut it first, and then we would take the rake and rake it in windrows, and then you would go down. Sometimes you could use the rake to bunch it up. Otherwise, you would take forks and pitch it into piles, and then you'd go along and pick it up with the onto the wagon, pitch it up onto the wagon this way.
So sometimes you would do it entirely by hand. You wouldn't even have a horse-drawn rake to get it into windrows?
Oh yes, we always had a horse-drawn rake.
I see.
But we didn't have a hay loader at the time when we was doing this. Now we have that hay loader that's in Cluse Barn, which I will have given to the National Park.
Good. Okay, and what is this scene?
This is Jenny Van Busters, who was a grandmother to Carl Olson that used to have the sportsman shop. This is Sophie Levinsky, and this is Winnie Boswick. And we were up at what used to be, I believe they called it Lowe's, but anyway, it was a golf course that they made up on Alligator Hill. And they hired us for, I think it was $2 a day, and they'd put the lines here, which you will see here and here, and then we would sit there and dig all the weeds out.
And how did you use the lines?
Huh?
What were the lines?
They were some kind of a long line, and we had to just set them over. When we got that row done, then we had to set them over another distance this way. And we worked by the lines to be sure to get all of them.
I see. So Norm, go ahead.
So that's the way we weeded that golf course.
So normally it would be the four of you that would be sitting there together, but at this particular moment you're taking the picture?
No, sometimes there was as high as 6 and 8 of us.
Oh, yeah?
Not all in that, probably right there, but it was fun.
Yeah?
Because we laughed and joked, and you know, we was working as a happy group. We were making $2 an hour, or $2 a day, I mean to say.
Huh. Okay.
Now this is the barn raising bee that they had at Howard Olson's down here, where Walter Hodick lives now. And it was a new, they raised the barn, and it was in 1939 or 40. And here is some of the men that went up and, well, of course, nailing they had to be good climbers to get up on top there. But that was the way the barn was raised.
Did you take this picture?
Yes.
Do you remember many of these type of barn raisings during your life?
No, I don't. Because we did. Some of the barns wasn't made that way.
And a lot of the barns were probably older than that, weren't they? They had already
yeah.
done that.
Oh, this was considered a new barn because I think it was only up there about probably 10 years or so when it burned.
Yeah. Now, would these fellas all have gone and just pitched in with the idea then somebody would help them, you know, when their time came, or would they pay each other, or what?
No, it was when they went to barn raising bees, everybody that would. There was a few people in the neighborhood that wouldn't do those things for you, but the majority of the neighbors would all pitch in and be a barn raising bee, and you would feed them. Like I cooked for the group, I just practically done the whole meal, and of course the house wasn't big enough to have them in, so we made 2 by
Plywood?
Sawhorses. And then we put planks on it, and we made tables, and we'd put all the food out there, and they could help themselves.
Okay.
This is my father-in-law, Klaus Basch, and he's sitting in front of the corn crib, which my husband had made, and he's holding my oldest daughter, Arlene, and this is our dog that we had, and that was Shep. No, Duke was his name. And didn't anybody dare touch a child or he'd be right on top of them.
Yeah, right. Okay, Laura?
Okay, this is my daughter Jean, and this is Walter Hodick, and they're by the thrash machine that Ernie and Henry Anderson have. Now this here machine, if you watch it up here, that would be turned, and that blowed the straw out. Over here was the elevator where you throw the straw on, the grain on, and it would go through the machine, and then over here someplace is where the grain would come out, and then the straw would be separated, and that would come out there, and you'd blow it into the barn. And I think that's just about all, and we used to back it into the barn.
Okay, I'm just going to come in a little closer on this and show a little bit more detail about this machine. Move across here. And this was the Andersons' machine.
Yes, and there was one of these places where a man stood there all the time and made sure the bundles went in straight.
All right. What is this?
This is the Fortinitis Schoolhouse, and it was the last year that they had school there, I believe. And so after that, we didn't have school there anymore. And it went into the club then, but it's back to Glen Lake. Sad to say.
Oh. Why is that? Because they're not taking care of it right, or just because you miss having your club, you mean?
Well, we had it for 49 years, and we kept it up. And whatever happened, we don't know. But it's some way they got it back to Glen Lake School. But we really took it and kept it up. It would be in a mess right now. It would be in a heap if it wasn't for our club working the way they did.
Yeah. Okay, and then you were able to name some of these children? Could you start on the left there and
yes,
toward you? Okay.
This is Chris Eckert, and that was Charlie Eckert's youngest boy. And he went home one night and he said, "I'm not going to school anymore." And his dad says, "Why?" He says, "Well, it's just a waste of time."
Okay. Did he go to school anymore?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
In fact, he was buried in his overalls.
Oh, yeah?
He was an awful nice fellow.
Okay. Who's next?
And this here is Leonard Thorson.
Oh, okay. And he's around Glen Arbor still?
Yes. And he was Ole Thorson's son.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was the youngest. No, I don't think he was. Yes, maybe he was the youngest.
Okay. And then who else?
And then this is Pete Burfeen.
Okay, and he lived right there on the Burfeen farm with the two houses.
That's right.
Okay.
And this is Chris Eckert.
Okay, let's see. Where is he again? Could you point that one once more?
Right here.
Right
And that's
there.
Charlie's second boy.
Okay.
And now let's see. I gotta see who this is. Gee, I know who it is.
Hang on just a minute. Okay, continue.
And this is Becky Burfeen.
Oh, okay. So she would have been a sister of the other Burfeen?
Yes, she's Howard's girl.
Okay.
And this is my oldest daughter, Arlene.
Okay.
And, of course, that's Arthur Basch's child.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Eileen Deckel. And she was John Deckel's daughter by his second marriage.
Okay.
And this is Greta Baker. And that was Fred Baker's youngest daughter.
Hmm.
And this is Charles Miller, Jr.
Okay, and he grew up on the Miller farm at the end of Miller Road?
Yes. And that was Charlie's boy. And this is Charles Eckert. And
Okay.
that is Charlie Eckert's boy, too.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Rosemary Miller. And this is Mary Lou Miller.
So they were sisters to the other Miller that grew
Yes.
up at the Miller farm?
And this is Anna Ree.
Which one?
This one here.
Anna Ree?
Anna Ree Miller.
Oh, okay.
And this is Mrs. Richardson, the teacher.
Oh. What's her first name? Is it Lorraine?
Yeah.
Okay. She's still around.
Yeah.